Your neighbours, yeah. I mean, apparently they've been to Disneyland recently. She's going to add hotels and restaurants to her brand. What's this all about?
I think there's no better way to try to bury a tacky twerking video than the wholesome image that is Disneyland, right?
When their behaviour became obnoxious, self-serving, and rankly hypocritical. Sadly, millions of people around the world will watch this series and they'll believe it. They'll believe the smears about Britain and our monarchy, that we're a bunch of bigoted and hateful people.
Time, I have to say, ladies and gentlemen, for a very special guest. It is Kinsey Schofield, the one and only from the United States of America. Looks like a good time not to be in LA, actually.
I made my escape.
Who needs Buckingham Palace when you've got a Main Street photo op at Disneyland, right? But oh, honey, this was no innocent theme park family day. Prince Harry and Meghan Markle strutted through the California sun like royalty reborn. But not everyone's buying what they were selling. In fact, Piers Morgan?
Well, Harry and Meghan's Netflix series, released to the world this morning, is packed with, well, not really revelations, are they? It's sort of rehashed old revelations with a new twist. As it turns out, we've apparently been wrong all along. Britain is a nasty, racist hellhole where only magnificent Meghan stood up to all this. And the world's biggest victims are not the people of Ukraine or the people battling COVID or people struggling in a devastating cost of living crisis. No, the world's biggest victims right now are the Duke and Duchess of Netflix. And don't take my word for it.
Meghan and Harry, hand in hand, children in tow, were spotted celebrating little Lilibet Diana's birthday. At first glance, it looked wholesome, sweet even. A dad, a mom, their kiddos. But in typical Sussex fashion, the fairy tale was too flawless, and people started raising eyebrows real quick.
Taking all of the, you're distracting from all the headlines about how low can you go.
Yeah.
With like, look at how cute Lily's birthday cake is. So
Because online, it wasn't a sprinkle of pixie dust. It was a hurricane of suspicion. Viewers didn't see a fun day. They saw something fishy. And the vibes, strategic. As in, why did this feel less like a birthday celebration and more like an Instagram ad campaign with royalty?
Last weekend was a bit wet and dank and damp and horrible, but, you know, I think it's going to be good this week.
Well, I hope so too, because I did not bring damp clothing.
Did you not? That was very unwise. Well, you can always buy some, you know.
That's true.
Let's talk about the dreaded pair from Montecito, Meghan and Harry.
My neighbours.
Your neighbours, yeah. I mean, apparently they've been to Disneyland recently. She's going to add hotels and restaurants to her brand. What's this all about?
I think there's no better way to try to bury a tacky twerking video than the wholesome image that is Disneyland, right? Because now you're taking all of the, you're distracting from all the headlines about how low can you go.
Yeah.
With like, look at how cute Lily's birthday cake is. So I do think that what we're seeing is Meghan trying to change public perception with the children by using the children and pushing this mom of the
children who she never wanted to use for publicity, obviously.
Obviously not. No.
So that's changed.
We're not allowed to see them, but for some reason she's still posting them on the internet, which I think I'd love to talk to a psychologist about how if you're a weirdo that is curious.
Let's talk about the privacy irony, shall we? The couple who practically fled the UK screaming for privacy chose one of the world's most crowded tourist traps on a weekend to make their big appearance. Not exactly subtle. And somehow every paparazzi shot came out perfect. Like Vogue cover perfect. Coincidence? Are a camera crew tipped off with GPS coordinates and a photo brief?
Yeah, nobody set out to destroy you. You destroyed yourselves in this country with your ludicrous, hypocritical behaviour. The truth be told, what she just did is complete and utter garbage. Harry and Meghan's romance, engagement and marriage were all greeted with ecstatic joy by the British media, the public and the royal family that they've all now abandoned. That's the truth. Not Harry and Meghan's truth, but the actual truth. The first 3 hours of this Netflix series paint a very different, far uglier picture of this country and our royal family.
8 days after the relationship became public, I put out a statement calling out the racist undertones of articles and headlines that were written by the British press.
I wasn't thinking about how race played a part in any of this.
I sometimes call the Commonwealth Empire 2.0 because that is what it is.
There is a huge level of unconscious bias. The thing with unconscious bias is it's actually no one's fault, but
Every frame looked like it had been approved by a PR team with a Pinterest mood board. Harry pushing the stroller with that super dad aura. Meghan all glammed up in I'm just effortlessly chic attire. Security practically invisible. The kids? Oh, their faces were blurred in post-production. Just enough mystery to get tongues wagging, but not enough to stop the clicks. Crafty, you bet.
Enticing people that become obsessed with these types of things by teasing them with just these little bits.
Yeah, because I mean, a lot of celebrities just don't put their children out at all. I mean, you know, even I didn't do it, not because I'm a celebrity, but I didn't want pictures of my children on the internet. Now, they're older, they're 18, that's fine, but not with...
And get this, they skipped the ultra-exclusive Disney VIP services. You know, the services designed to keep celebs hidden? No fast-track access, no private guide. Instead, they strolled deliberately through high-traffic zones where flashbulbs could catch every angle. According to Hollywood insiders, this wasn't an accident. This was calculated exposure, said one source. They knew what they were doing.
When they were 10 or 5, or, you know, when they were little kids, you don't put pictures of them on the internet. You just don't do it.
Right.
Because there's a lot of weird people out there and you never know what's going to happen.
Right.
So for them to do it is really bizarre.
Yeah, I just think you're increasing the chances of attracting somebody that would hide in the bushes or, you know, like just like the inappropriate...
Oh, and let's not forget, this is the same couple that sued paparazzi for snapping them in their backyard, the same couple that blasted British tabloids for invading their peace. And yet, here they were, center stage at Disneyland, a hotspot for selfies, chaos, and screaming fans. Make it make sense.
The marriage were all greeted with ecstatic joy by the British media, the public, and the royal family that they've all now abandoned. That's the truth. Not Harry and Meghan's truth, but the actual truth.
Naturally, the internet exploded. Some folks clung to the cute family day narrative, but others? They saw right through it. One tweet summed it up perfectly. Privacy when convenient, publicity when profitable. Mic drop.
He sits on the BBC and complains about.
Given that he is he's talking about himself as a major target for almost every madman on the planet.
Yes.
You know.
So what was the real motive? Was this just a sweet day for Lily? Or was this a soft launch for another documentary? A little wink at the royal fam or a desperate bid for relevance? Whatever the goal, it created more questions than answers and headlines hotter than churros in July. One thing's clear, this wasn't about teacups and fireworks. It was all about image.
Right.
Ringing on doorbells and wondering if they might be in there. What was that all about?
That was so bizarre.
I know.
That was, and it just crushes his entire argument that he's fearing for his life with every step he takes.
And just when you thought things couldn't get more dramatic, in comes Piers Morgan. Yes, the king of controversy himself. The man who could start a fire with a tweet. He came in swinging, roasting the Sussexes like it was Sunday dinner, and he had a full plate of receipts.
And how she is so similar to my mum. She has the same compassion, she has the same empathy, she has the same confidence. She has this warmth about her.
Piers didn't need to drop names. We all knew who he meant. Celebrities who post pics of their kids to boost their parenting image, he scoffed. Then blur their faces like they care about privacy? Makes me chuckle. Yikes. That wasn't just shade, that was a full eclipse.
This is like one of 3 doors you knocked on randomly. So I would say I mean, the problem with Harry and Meghan is that they constantly contradict themselves between Meghan's Disneyland photos.
Within minutes, the post caught fire. Screenshots, memes, debate threads, it was everywhere. The subtext wasn't subtle. Piers had thrown a grenade at Meghan and Harry's Disneyland fantasy, and it hit.
He's painted a very different, far uglier picture of this country and our royal family.
8 days after the relationship became public, I put out a statement calling out the racist undertones of articles and headlines that were written by the British press.
I wasn't
Say what you want about Piers, he knows how to stir drama like it's afternoon tea. His fans praised him for calling out what they all believed. The Sussexes are playing both sides. Meanwhile, Meghan and Harry's defenders lashed out, accusing Piers of being obsessed and pathetic. But his real message? It was loud. Stop using your kids for clout.
Doors. Meghan and Harry campaign to keep children off of social media. They do huge campaigns. They erected, an art installation in New York to keep children off of social media. I do think.
And if Team Sussex wasn't panicking before, they definitely were now. Sources claim their PR squad went into emergency mode, trying to spin the whole thing as an innocent family outing, but the damage was done. The Disney dream had turned into a PR nightmare.
Pointed out or identified within yourself, you then need to make it right.
Yep, we're all racists, apparently. It sounds like a different country, but let's be clear, Britain's one of the most tolerant and multicultural nations in the world. We celebrated the glamorous modern flair of the new young royals. We eulogised the newly biracial monarchy as the fresh face of 21st century Britain. I wrote newspaper columns about it myself, including on the day of the wedding. The press and public only turned on Harry and Meghan when their behaviour became obnoxious, self-serving and rankly hypocritical. Sadly, millions of people around the world will watch this series and they'll believe it. They'll believe the smears about Britain and our monarchy, that we're a bunch of bigoted and hateful people. They even blamed Brexit for the racism, which apparently...
No one was buying it, with Piers fanning the flames and critics piling on. What started as a supposed birthday trip quickly spiraled into the PR flop of the month. And once again, Piers Morgan walked away from the wreckage like a smug cat who just knocked over a vase. And somehow got more followers for it. The Sussexes' usual go-to move when things go south: lawyer up. Instead of laying low or posting some vague reflection about growth, Harry and Meghan reportedly huddled with legal counsel. Word on the street, another lawsuit might be brewing, and Piers Morgan was squarely in their sights. Again, that's right, using little Lilibet's birthday, a child named after the late Queen Elizabeth herself, as a backdrop for what many are calling a PR spectacle. It wasn't just controversial, it was insulting. To William, it was another calculated move designed to steal headlines right before key royal events like Trubin the Color. Insiders say William's no longer content with keeping calm and carrying on. Word is he's pushing for real consequences, and that means reconsidering the couple's royal perks, titles included. Yep, the Duke and Duchess nameplate might not be safe much longer, and King Charles, let's just say he's not exactly beaming with pride either. While Charles has tried to maintain a diplomatic distance from the drama, those close to him say the Disneyland stunt crossed a line. It wasn't just a media circus, it was poorly timed, incredibly tone-deaf, and too public to ignore. His patience, like the public's, is reportedly wearing thin. But perhaps what stung the most for the firm wasn't the photos, it was the pattern. Because real moms at Disneyland aren't gliding through high traffic zones in perfectly tailored linen. They're sweating in Mickey ears, wiping ice cream off strollers, and dragging toddlers away from souvenir stands. Meghan didn't look like a mom. She looked like a model on set. And the public, we're not dumb. We know what a brand launch looks like. We know when a day out is just a promo in disguise. And when every public moment is followed by a lawsuit threat, the moment anyone questions it, the narrative collapses. Because people don't just want stories anymore, they want honesty, authenticity. And what Meghan and Harry gave us at Disneyland was neither. Instead, we got another layer of their favorite formula: selective vulnerability plus strategic optics plus emotional undertones equals viral buzz. Except this time it backfired. The fallout kept snowballing across Reddit, X, Instagram. People were connecting the dots and the picture wasn't pretty. What should have been a sweet birthday outing turned into a full-blown expose of Sussex contradictions. And the question on everyone's mind: if they hate the spotlight so much, why do they keep jumping in front of it? Some users pointed out the double standard, how the Sussexes bash the paparazzi, yet orchestrate their own photo op. Others highlighted how their children are both off limits and front and center, depending on what message they're pushing. That kind of pick and choose privacy, it just doesn't sit well anymore. So now, here we are. Meghan and Harry, once global darlings, are now the center of a slow motion unraveling. There was a time they could do no wrong. They were the glamorous outsiders, the rebels with a royal cause, fighting mental health stigma, exposing racism, breaking centuries-old traditions. They had the world's attention and its sympathy. But something shifted. The Netflix docuseries, glossy but repetitive. Spotify? That high-profile deal ended with a whimper. Meghan's latest business venture, critically lukewarm. And now even their strongest selling point, their carefully protected family image, is beginning to feel, well, commodified. Even their supporters admit it, the charm is wearing thin. There are only so many times you can cry invasion and then turn around and sell intimate family moments to the highest bidder. There are only so many documentaries, memoirs, and lawsuits before the narrative turns stale. And that's exactly what's happening. Hollywood, once their biggest champion, is starting to drift away. Not with drama, not with anger, but with silence. And in the world of media, silence speaks volumes. The Sussex brand is no longer fresh. It's no longer exciting. It's no longer the rebellion. It's the rerun. Meanwhile, Meghan's podcast continues to struggle. Confessions of a Female Founder hoped to ride the wave of empowerment and storytelling, but listeners didn't connect. Critics say it lacks soul. It feels too rehearsed, too safe, too packaged. And in a world that craves raw honesty, that's the kiss of death. So what did Meghan do? Cue the Disneyland photo shoot. It was a play, straight out of the influencer handbook. Stir up chatter, create a viral distraction, shift the narrative. But it didn't land. Instead of looking real, it looked desperate. Instead of heartwarming, it came off as hollow. And now the public sees it, the palace sees it, even fans see it. What once felt like a fairy tale now feels like a production. And people are starting to walk out of the theater. The most brutal part? It didn't have to be this way. Harry and Meghan had the perfect setup. A new start in California, a global audience, massive platform deals, and a wave of public empathy. But somewhere between privacy and PR, they lost the plot. And the public noticed. Because when every heartwarming moment comes with a filter and every candid glance looks storyboarded, people stop believing. When your toddler's birthday becomes a headline, not because of sweetness, but because of strategy, you lose credibility. Even Piers Morgan, the couple's most vocal critic, couldn't help but notice the irony. The man who's clashed with them time and again, who was written off as bitter and obsessed, suddenly didn't sound so far-fetched anymore. His jabs struck a chord, not because they were gentle, but because they were uncomfortably accurate. And that's the scariest thing for Meghan and Harry right now. Their critics aren't just loud, they're making sense. The inconsistencies, the staged vulnerability, the lawsuits, it's all starting to add up, and not in their favor. The palace, once quiet, is rumbling. King Charles is reportedly disappointed. Prince William, furious. And there are real whispers now about revoking titles, freezing privileges, drawing lines in the sand. It's no longer just family drama. It's a full-blown constitutional headache. Because this isn't just about two people walking away from the crown. It's about the mess they keep making after, the headlines, the division, the public confusion over who they really are now. And through it all, the Sussexes keep insisting they want out of the spotlight while sprinting back into it whenever engagement drops. But fame doesn't work like that. The same audience that once rallied behind them now watches with skepticism. Every blurred photo, every calculated moment feels like a chapter in a never-ending piece. And the cost? Trust. Because once that's gone, even fairy tales start sounding fake. So now, the royal rebels face a reckoning. The question isn't just what's next, it's who's still listening. Because when the cameras fade and the headlines move on, what's left? A palace that's ready to close its doors, a public that stopped clapping, and a legacy that, if they're not careful, might end not in triumph, but in tabloid history. History in Disneyland was never just a day out. It was a move, a message, a performance. But this time, the audience saw through it. The magic's gone, the curtain's down, and the world, still watching, still judging, still not buying the act.